that was like the stand up out of your seat kind of wow. Like,
Well, I literally did because I remember that play. I did. I jumped out of my seat. Give a fist bump when that happened for sure.
Welcome to My Got a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 40-13 win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. We talk about what I saw in the stadium and what John saw on the broadcast. As always, remember you can follow us on social media at My Got a Podcast. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress.
all right, so let's go ahead and get started then.
Yeah. So hopefully the audio's not too bad as I am in that stretch that you're familiar with from coming to Charlotte for the Clemson game. Between Spartanburg to Gaffney is not the best stretch of highway on I-85, so excuse the.
Oh man.
If you can hear the Jeep shaking when I hit like potholes, that's apologies.
Jim, you're making the drive that I said that I never wanted to make again, really. Like, you're going through Gaffney and all that stuff, like and considerably less Georgia fans too, I would imagine.
Yeah. This is I do this drive after every game when every home game I come to when I head home from Trip Dog's house. So I guess I'm kind of used to it.
You're used to it.
Yeah.
How was the trip? Give us kind of the rundown for the South Carolina. We're here talking about the Georgia South Carolina game. So give us a rundown of your thoughts from sights and scenes.
Right. So it was definitely a bit of a last minute decision for me to go. So we were supposed to have soccer this weekend. Lily's game got canceled. So when we found out about that, talked to my parents, and I came down. So, but I drove down on the day of on Saturday, and just kind of did lunch with my parents and hung out at the house a little bit. We watched the first half of Bama, Florida on TV, and then kind of just went in and went straight to the game. So no tailgating or anything for this one, pretty low key. But I will say, good weather again. I wouldn't say it was quite Chamber of Commerce like UAB. The interesting thing was the game was like a 3.5 hour later kickoff, but it was somehow hotter. And maybe it was just the humidity. Like, it was super muggy. So I would say it was a little bit less comfortable in the stands. But was able to snap that picture that I feel like I'm still getting notifications on that picture. We tweeted out from the podcast account. It's blown up like a Hunt the Jones uniform tweet or something. That was good. So glad people enjoyed that.
Yeah. It certainly looked like it was a Chamber of Commerce day from that picture. Of course.
Yeah. The view was great. For sure.
Yeah. So tailgating was good. You got to meet up with some folks.
So I did. So I saw some folks during the game, actually. So yeah, we pretty much parked and then walked into the stadium. But I'm going to recap a couple of things. The first one was pretty funny to me. My dad and I went and got Chick-fil-A in the stadium before kickoff, and then I bumped into a guy wearing an FTMS hat when I was in line for Chick-fil-A. So I asked him where he got it, and I think he got it from the FTMS hole at the Bulldogs batting breast cancer golf tournament. So shout out to them. Shout out to Dwight. And then obviously to Josh and Graham from Dog Sports Live, because they sponsored that hole. So that was pretty funny. So I was messaging them to let them know that I met the guy that won their hat at the golf tournament. That was pretty funny. And then got to spend halftime chatting it up with Coach Trillbill again and his brother. So went up and talked to them. They sit a little bit behind me. And then I ran into a buddy from high school, Olin. So shout out Olin. Hadn't seen him in a few years. He was in my line of sight when I was trying to locate Coach Trillbill and saw Olin. So that was good. That was a good time. Got to catch up with him as well. So atmosphere was great, man. Night game. You got the light up Stanford going to the fourth quarter and the red light show. going into fourth quarter. So that did disappoint. That's always awesome.
Ah, man, I'm super jealous. I'm super jealous. I will say that I'm definitely waiting to cash in the tailgate chips or the game day chips for a much cooler, shall we say, game where I can enjoy the tailgating a good bit more.
Yeah, I gotta, heard good things about some of the tailgates. So gotta make it over to the Huggins tailgate. It sounds pretty epic.
Yeah,
Try to do that
yeah,
before the season's over.
yeah. And Greg has a good setup over there by what was it? Is it Reed Hall, Reed Quad or something like that?
I
Um,
think so. I didn't know exactly where they were. Otherwise, I totally would have crashed on my way in.
yeah, I
But
think he's over by Reed Quad maybe. But
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of good spots for sure. I know Logan's over by the vet school, I think, something like that. But there's a there's a bunch of good spots to hit up, and that's kind of what I want to go and make the tour of the tailgates, so to speak,
right,
myself. So I'm super
right.
jealous that you got any tailgating whatsoever. So um, kudos for you and Frip Dog on the last minute decision there. So but
Yeah, it
yeah,
was a good time.
so the game. So there was also a game that happened. Let's talk about the game. What were your
There was a
thoughts?
game. I think overall, I'll say this was the closest we had been on our score predictions. So I think I said like 42-6, and you were pretty close to there. You had like 47-14 or 13 or something. So I think the game. I think it overall it went pretty much how we thought it would. Right, like
Hmm.
they were overmatched. We definitely were the more talented team. Also, we did have that listener question: who would score first, the South Carolina offense or the Georgia defense? Right, and I think you said Georgia defense. I said push, and so the Georgia defense did score, not via pick six, but we had the safety at the end of the first half. Right, so I don't know if you want to say, because you said Georgia defense, so I'm going to say that technically you were right, even though they had scored points, off field goals. But it's pretty close, right? Like we got the safety before they got their offensive touchdown.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
no, we ended the streak of consecutive games with a pick six. Although Kendrick was pretty close, he almost broke that. I think he needed like one more block. But we are on a streak of 3 straight games where the defense scores. So pick six in game 1 and game 2, and then the safety in game 3. So we'll have to maybe reach out to the same crew as last week to see if that's ever happened before. I'm not
Right.
sure. That would be an interesting all-time thing. But yeah, I think I was happy to see the run game. This was the best the run game had looked thus far this season. Primarily around like run blocking, like there were actually lanes for the running backs to go through, and they took advantage of it. James Cook and Zamir White, both of their touchdowns. I think Cook had like a little bit of a crease and then took it to the house. Zamir pretty much walked in on his. Very nice. So that was definitely good to see. And then obviously the return of JT Daniels, was exciting, and we got to see him stretch the field. And both the passes, the long touchdown passes to Burton and then the Adonai Mitch were both just, they were beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely something that was nice to see. Although, yeah, so my takeaways were definitely similar to yours, right? So it was nice to see the running game back. We rushed for almost 200 yards, I think, something like that. Um, you know, JT Daniels, we were kind of itching for him to have a big game. He threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had the one interception was the blemish on him. It was kind of like an
Yeah.
ill-advised throw, and then um, and speaking of interceptions, Stetson came in for a series, which that's probably going to be walking away from this game the biggest talking point for everyone, at least on the Twitters last night.
Yeah.
And I think that if you were a talking head on the ESPN show, you're probably locked in on this conversation. But Why was Stetson even in the game? I know our text thread was blowing up about it as well. So, um, sounded like it was part of the plan. But I think that there's still questions that remain on that one, and I'll touch on that. But I'm curious what your take was on that situation.
So yeah, so so secondhand, like my understanding is that Kirby told someone that we should expect to see Stetson at some point in the first half. So it definitely seemed scripted. The other thing, like comparing to the UAB game, so UAB it was 2 series for Stetson and then 1 for Beck, right? So it was 2-1, 2-1. And in this game, that series when Stetson came in, that was the 3rd series of the game. So I do wonder if they had the same plan from this game as they did the prior, which definitely seems weird. Obviously, I would say it seems weird to me, right? Because we talked about that in the preview, and you were commenting around rotation, and my response to you was like, well, there won't be rotation in this game. There's no reason to be. Like, whoever starts will just be the starter. And clearly I was wrong as far as what the actual plan was. I like my plan better. I mean, especially the way JT was playing. It was
Hmm.
very weird. And I'll say, even though I had my headphones with me, I think I wasn't listening right at the time. I didn't realize, again, in the stadium, I didn't even realize that it was Stetson until he threw the pick. And I heard Scott Howard say Stetson threw it because it was on the opposite end of the field from us when that happened. So I was shocked. I don't know what. I mean, the only thing I can come up with is it's one of those, Stetson stuck with us and he has earned the opportunity to play kind of thinking, I guess, but I still don't get that. I mean, you're out there to win football games and JT Daniels gives us the best path to that. So I don't get it, but I don't know. I'm not a head coach. What do I know?
As you're driving through the treacherous terrain there in South Carolina, have you had a chance to listen to the Bulldog Brunch at all?
I heard a little bit of it. We got back super late after the game, so I was up really late. We had parked at a parking deck, and it took like over a half hour just to get out of the deck. So we got back to the house late, and then we needed to unwind a little bit, and had a victory bourbon. So I actually like slept in. So I left my parents' house a little too late. Missed a bit of the Bulldog Brunch. I caught the tail end of it,
Yeah.
but missed most of it. I heard them
Well,
after the game, and like somebody was upset. There was someone who called in and they were upset with Jeff Dancer saying that he didn't ask Kirby in the post game press conference or radio availability that he should have asked him about the quarterback switch. I thought that was kind of funny, but yeah.
I
So no,
mean,
I don't have anything else on that.
he's not he's not wrong. I haven't listened to it either. We had it's raining here in Marietta today, off and on, and we were at a soccer game. Carter had a soccer game today that was just an absolute downpour. Won the game, but haven't had a chance to listen to Bulldog Brunch just yet. But I'm curious. I am curious, like you said, if anybody has got the gumption to ask him about that. I'm sure that someone will, right? So like the question
Yeah,
the question is and this was my thing. If you've got a quarterback that's dealing the way that he was dealing, I mean, he had, let's see, what was the actual lines on it? So let's see. He had he had a
yeah. Go ahead.
43 he had a 43 or six plays, 75 yards. A lot of that was JT Daniels to Brock Bowers. James Cook had a 23-yard run. We were
Yeah,
rolling, rocking and rolling on offense. They got down, kicked a field goal. They had the busted play early on, got them in the field goal range. Had a great effort. That was a great effort play for Amir Speed to come run him down. So
yeah,
kudos to him. Got blown coverage. We'll definitely touch on him in a minute. But then he had the 43-yard pass to Burton. He had a 38-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter to AD Mitchell. Um, I mean, from there, at that point the route was on. So it was just frustrating to see Stetson come in when you had a quarterback that was lighting things up like that. And I joked, clearly the oblique was fine. So
yeah,
at
yeah.
that point, if he's healthy enough to start and he's healthy enough to sling it around like that, um, why would you ever go back? And that's
I
going to be a big question mark.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I don't understand it. I would love to hear the logic. I'm sure someone will ask him at some point.
Right.
I haven't read even, like Seth Emerson's, Sunday article or anything like that yet. So hopefully someone asks and maybe we'll get something. Although knowing Kirby, I'm not sure that he'll give much insight into it. But it's definitely weird, man. Like, I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of, back when we had like, David Green and DJ Shockley, and like sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't, right? Like there were games where David Green was like rolling, then you bring in DJ and it would kind of feel odd. But then there was other games where it did work. But I'll say this about that, right? I mean, that was with David Green and DJ Shockley. I mean, we are not in that kind of situation with JT and Stetson.
I was just about to say that's a little bit different.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no offense to Stetson Bennett. I mean, he's a DGD, and what he did last week against UAB was amazing. But this didn't make sense. Totally different situation. I didn't get it.
Yeah. So, the good news is that I think that they quickly realized that that I think as soon as he threw the pick, I mean, he was 1 of 4 passing. I think he had like 4 yards or something like that. I don't know. I think that as soon as that happened, Kirby immediately went to, nope, not going to do this. We're not going to mess around with this. And so immediately went back to JT Daniels.
Yeah, we didn't see Stetson come into the game until the game was well in hand, and it was, mop-up duty. Right, that's when I would have expected him to come in anyways. So obviously, I don't have, no issues with that. That made sense.
Speaking of that, speaking of mop up duty, so if you ever go to ESPN, I'll text you this just so you can see this work of art. The win probability percentage for UGA was never dropped below like 95%.
Wow.
So as you look at the win probability like percentage, it like flatlined when we went up 26-6. When we went up 26-6 early in the third quarter, that the win percentage went to like 100%, and it never changed.
Yeah, and it felt that way in the stadium, honestly. So that checked out.
Yeah, it definitely felt that way for me as well, because like I said, I had I think I tweeted this out, but I had some buddies come over from my workout group, and we were just having some whiskeys, totally last minute, but towards the fourth quarter, I think everybody was kind of like, yeah, this game's over. And so like I missed part of the fourth quarter. Still haven't seen it, haven't had a chance to, but I know I missed parts of it, but I do remember distinctly like an observation as I was like sitting there chatting. I remember I yelled out, "Dang it, they scored!" And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. Like, dude, you're winning like 40 something. Like, come on now. I was like, yeah, right. But they scored. Oh, I wanted to shut them out.
Right. We didn't want to see that offensive touchdown. So the one thing I want to go back and look for it, I haven't seen yet, but the play that really allowed that to happen, I mean, was Kendall Milton's I'm doing air quotes in my head at least, fumble. I haven't seen it. I have not seen the TV copy, but from the text messages I received, including from my wife Kim was like texting me. She's my eyes and ears on the TV when I'm in the stadium. She was texting me. She's like, he was down. So it sounds like he was certainly down, and then the ball came out, and apparently they reviewed it and confirmed it, is what they said on the radio broadcast. So I don't understand how that happened, but take that away, don't even have the ball to score that touchdown. So that was certainly disappointing. But again, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I know like for the betting folks, it mattered a lot because that was the difference in the point spread. But for me, I don't gamble. This is why I don't gamble, that kind of stuff, right? But like, I mean, we still won very comfortably. 27-point win. So.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I actually there's a video of just that fumble on the YouTubes that I'll send you. He
What's
definitely. Huh?
What's your assessment? Fumble or was he down?
I mean, it looks like he's definitely fumbling. Like the strafe on the hand, like he's already like the ball's already kind of moving at that point. So like it definitely looks like it's a fumble. I don't think that there would have been enough there to overturn it if the call on the field was a fumble.
Okay. Yeah, it was. So you disagree with the folks I was hearing from. That's okay. I'll take a look at it when I get home.
I mean, I'm trying to be an unbiased observer. Obviously, we won the game, so like, had it
Yeah,
had it had it cost us the game, heck no, it's not a fumble.
Right.
So, yeah, so Kendall Milton was actually our leading rusher in that game too, which is also interesting. Because I
He
didn't.
had some nice runs, man. He had some really nice runs. He looks good. He looked good.
It's funny. I'd be curious to see like the breakdowns of the yards after contact and stuff, because like on the TV, like it felt like every time I was looking up, it was either Cook or White getting getting a big gain. I mean, obviously, both Cook and White had scoring drives, scoring plays. So maybe that's part of it, but it felt like that Cook and White were doing a lot more. They were having a lot more success. So it was a surprise for me to kind of wake up and realize, oh, Kendall Milton was the leading rusher.
Yeah,
But they
I
had.
know he broke off one pretty long run, I think, in the second quarter. Kendall did,
Mhm.
and then he also was getting a lot of work there in that fourth quarter, kind of leading up to that fumble. So,
Yeah.
and we took, we did over under 0.5 Kendall Milton touchdowns, and you were right on that one. I felt like he was going to get one. There was a sequence when we were down in the goal line. It was the series when James Cook scored his receiving touchdown. There was a play. I think it was a play before Cook's touchdown. Zamir had been in the game, and they switched and brought in Kendall, and like Zamir White popped Kendall on the head, kind of like go in there and get your touchdown. Is the way I interpreted the interaction. But it didn't happen. I don't know. They actually were in two pass plays after that. So I'm not sure what was going on there.
Right. I mean, we were averaging 6 yards a carry, so I mean that's pretty good. I mean, even though the individual rushers were kind of a mixed bag, but we averaged almost 6 yards an attempt. We ran for 184 yards, held them to 82 yards rushing, which is another big defensive stat. But if you look at the game, which I guess some of that's going to be the nature of the blowout and the nature of some of the big plays that they gave up, but
Yeah.
they
The
actually
offense.
they actually held the ball for longer than Georgia did.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't notice that. I mean, the offense looked really good. Got to point out we got the return of Kyrus Jackson to offense, and I think he delivered, right? I mean, you really saw his veteran ability to get open beyond the first down marker. He had some key catches that were for first down on third down that were really big to extend drive. So that was good. The other thing, though, I haven't gone and looked at the participation chart, but just from my remembering of watching the game, I don't recall seeing Arian Smith. So that was something we had talked about. He got the lower leg contusion is what we heard last game. I don't recall seeing him in the game. So hopefully Arian's okay. We'll have to watch out for that.
Yeah, I mean that, like I said, in the game, in the UAB game, it felt like that. I was like, the way that he was limping, it seemed like it was more than what everybody was talking about, which is why I was concerned about it. But in the end, we didn't. In the end, we didn't need it. We didn't need him, obviously, today, and that was actually something that I did hear. I think it was a caller that called in on something that I was listening to. But they were talking about, we're actually missing a lot of our key wide receiver assets for the game, and yet here we are. We still have guys that can step up and catch the ball at a high clip. I was joking with the guys in the room, like, I was getting excited. I was explaining because these one of them was a tech grad and another one is more of an NFL guy that came over. So like none of them really had any allegiances or any awareness of what was going on. But I was hyping up Brock Bowers, and I was explaining to them why it was so awesome and how it was interesting. And then they saw this guy number 0 on the sideline. They're like, "Who the heck is that guy? He's huge."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, about that." Yeah, we're missing two big pieces, and frankly, like the question is like, does he even get into the game at this point? I'm sure he does, but it's just
Right.
one of those things. Like Brock Bowers is playing out of his mind right now, dude. Um, I would even go so far as to say, like, is he getting into the conversation of being on an All American team as a freshman?
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair. He is everything we hoped for and more. Thus far, he's
Yeah.
awesome.
He very
Um,
clearly is. He very clearly is JT Daniels' favorite receiver right now.
yep, yep. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. You want to talk about the defense a little bit? Because obviously, I don't know. I guess I was about to say something, and then I realized, they've still only given up one offensive touchdown all year. But
What were you gonna
the
say? Please, out with it.
well,
Out with it. Come on, own it.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, it's not. It wasn't as dominant as we had seen, and I do feel like we saw the secondary get exposed a little bit. So coming into the season, our concern was with the corners, right? Like we felt great about the front seven, and we felt good about our veteran safety. But who did we have on the to cover on the edge? Gave up the long touchdown pass, gave up a long gain down the sideline. Also had multiple times where there was a guy running wide open, and South Carolina just didn't have the quarterback to get the ball to him. So it could have been closer. I'm not saying like we were ever in any kind of danger of like it being tied or losing the game or anything like that. Obviously, that's not the case. But the coverage was concerning. I'll give their receiver number 6. I'm blanking on his name. That guy's
Van.
good for South Carolina. Yeah, he's good, man. Like that.
Josh Van.
Okay, so the one catch for sure, like the one that was like over Kendrick. I mean, Kendrick had positioning on him, and the guy like went over his back.
Yeah.
That was impressive. So he's good. So I got to give him credit. But I think opposing teams are going to have some film now that they can see of there are, at least right now as it stands right now, there are ways to go over top on this defense. But the other thing to remember there is we just still don't have Tyke Smith back yet. So I don't know how that'll work into the mix. I know he's more of a safety though. So definitely, it's one of those things where I will say this though, like it's kind of, I think it's a great spot for Kirby and the coaching staff where we won the game comfortably, but enough things went wrong that the coaches have things that they can point to the team and the players and show them where they can improve.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely one of those like Nick Saban, like classic victories. Like, well, we gotta figure out how to tackle. We gotta figure out how to defend the pass.
Yeah.
That's definitely what it feels like. I mean, so that guy Van, he was fantastic, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
accounted for over half of their receiving yards was that one player. He had 128 yards, one touchdown, and over half of his yards was on one play. So he had a 61 yard play, which I
Okay.
think was the first one on
I
speed,
think
if I
so.
remember,
I
correctly.
think so.
Um,
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was him or the other guy Brooks that had a long reception, but anyway, he only had 3 catches.
Wow. Felt like more.
I know. I was surprised. I was like, man, this guy's all over the place. But yeah, he only had 3 catches, and he accounted for that was over half of their 214 total yards receiving. So if you take him out of the game, if he's removed from the game, like it really is like an absolute like face bash. Um,
Yeah.
so you mentioned that like it didn't feel like dominating. Like I actually felt like it was dominating. It was more so like they had this guy that just kept them in drives. They would randomly get these first downs and things like that. And it just felt like a little needle every time he caught the ball. Every time they got a first down, it was like, "Ah, come on, guys, just give up. Like, come on, stop this."
Well, so yeah, it was dominating, and and especially from the front seven. I mean, the pass rush was there again. I mean, we got a safety for crying out loud, right? I mean, Jordan Davis tackling their quarterback in the end zone. Although I'm not sure exactly why they tried like a 3-step drop play action out of their own end zone, but whatever. The pass rush again was incredible. The run defense was incredible. Lewis Seen was out there. I mean, he comes in for tackles like a missile. I mean, he was amazing. So yeah, I mean, the defense, I don't know. It was just some of these things. I'm not sure like how much you see it on TV versus we're sitting high up in the end zone and kind of have that bird's eye view. There definitely were open receivers, but again, like it didn't hurt us. Like they only connected on those couple long ones. So I don't know. I definitely don't want to be like the guy who's complaining after you just won by 27 points. Don't take it that way.
Right. Yeah, I would say that the other defensive takeaways. Adam Anderson had a play. I think it was late in the third, if I remember correctly. But that actually was something that I was surprised about. So I saw the clip on Twitter. I didn't catch it live, but I saw on Twitter that someone posted this like good grief Adam Anderson. I think it was Hunter actually retweeted someone. But he was on special teams late in the game, and like that's the kind of stuff that like, oh man, that's just chef's kiss. Mwah. Like
it was the kickoff return. He dove and like just leveled the guy.
Well, it wasn't so much. Yes, it wasn't that he dove, but it was also that he literally bull rushed a guy out of the way, and then like it was like he came flying in, like the Incredible Hulk, and just absolutely smashed him to the ground. That was pretty awesome. So Adam Anderson, obviously freak of nature, expressing himself. That was like the stand up out of your seat kind of wow. Like I can't believe that just happened. Like he just basically threw two guys around, threw two grown men around like that they were ragdolls.
Well, I literally did because I remember that play. I jumped out of my seat. Give a fist bump when that happened for sure.
Yeah, so you got him. Channing Tindall, I think, is another guy that is just an absolute burner. We're just so stacked on the defensive side, and Beamer in the post game press conference basically said as much. I mean, I think some poor reporter asked him like what we were doing on defense to keep them at bay, basically. And Beamer like just was so exasperated. He's like, well, they've got 100 5-star players on defense. And they're big and they're physical and they push you around and yeah, and other than that, they're great.
Yeah, I think you said something about like they've got a 300-pound lineman that can outrun anyone on this phone call or something like that.
Yeah, a 300-pound defensive lineman they could run better than anyone on this phone call, I think is what he said. Oh man, yeah, and he just looked dejected. Like you could just see the exasperation on his face. He's like, guys, we got our butts kicked today.
Yeah, I mean they struggled, and I mean on the one I'm trying to remember, there was a drive where I think it was the opening drive of the second half where they were kind of driving a little bit, moving the ball, just running the ball, and so things where you can kind of feel it coming, like run, they're going to try to set the play action, and they did, but then Darion Kendrick got the interception. I mean at that point, then we come down and get the Zamir White touchdown, I believe. Like I think that was pretty demoralizing, right? Because you've got the end of the half situation where we pin them down with the punt. Then we get the safety. They kick off to us. We go down and kick the field goal, which was good to see Jackpot make a field goal. I definitely feel like that entire 2-minute drill drive was engineered with the ultimate goal of getting Jackpot a field goal attempt to get his confidence back. That's my Kirby 3D chess thinking there. But you've got that to end the half. Then they come out and are starting to get a little bit of drive going. Then we get the pick, and then we score. And at that point, it was already over, but then it was really over at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Other things that were of note. You know that you have a GIF problem when you're watching the game with your wife, and she points out to you. She points out on the screen, oh my gosh, that's a good GIF. You need to do that.
Was it Kirby Rage Stroke .gif? Was it that one?
It was a Kirby Rage Stroke, which I've yet to be able to get. I need to get into my computer and actually like make it. But yeah, it was another classic Kirby Rage Stroke.
Yeah, but from my recollection, it was Latavius Brini was on the other end of that. Is what I remember. I think he wasn't lined up correctly or something, and Kirby burned a timeout and let Latavius know his thoughts about it.
Yes, it was definitely Bringy. Poor guy. Yeah. Other any other closing thoughts for the
I got a,
USC
I
junior
got a,
game?
I got a couple other random things I meant to bring up earlier when you asked
Okay.
me about the atmosphere.
Yeah.
One was when I met up with Coach Trillbill, we were both able to exchange stories about the South Carolina fans that we saw removed from the stadium by the cops. Both of us witnessed that, so that was interesting. Nothing too terrible happened, but we both saw that, so that's kind of funny.
What were they
the
doing?
Other thing, so the guy up by Coach Trillbill was apparently vaping in the stadium.
Oh, yeah, you can't do that.
Can't do that.
Well,
the guy in. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Well, apparently in the Falcons games, you can light up blunts in the stadium, and then no one worries about that. I don't know if you saw that on it.
Okay.
There's an Instagram page called ATL Scoop, and there was a video of a woman like literally just firing up a blunt.
I've not seen that.
Yeah.
The guy that was in front of us was just. I knew when he came in and sat down that he wasn't going to last, and he did not last until halftime. He was hammered. He was the only South Carolina fan in the area, and just with the language, and there's like families that sit with us with younger, not with us, but in the general area that also seem tickets around us. There's younger kids, and I've got no problem if you end up in the other section and you're cheering for your team. But it was primarily just the language, considering the company he was around. So one of the kids' dads eventually had enough, and I knew it was going to happen eventually. Thankfully, when the one dad said something to him, the guy was like, "What are you going to do about it?" And he was like, "You don't want me to do anything about it." That's pretty funny. But then he ended up just going and getting security, and then oh my gosh, so the security couldn't convince the guy to leave, so then he went and got to the sheriff. And these guys were huge. Like, they looked like they could have played at Georgia or something. And so they got him to leave. There was no staying at that point.
Right.
But the other thing was the radio broadcast. So I don't know exactly what was going on, but Eric Zier was not on the radio broadcast last night. So they shifted DJ Shockley into the booth. And so he was doing the color commentary with Scott Howard. And then they had Jeff Dancer on the sideline, and it was awesome. It was a very good broadcast. I'm super glad that I had my headphones with me, which I know you'll be happy to know that I did have the big headphones.
Did we get a picture of this for the Twitters?
I mean, I took one at my parents' house before I left. I don't think I took a selfie in the stadium.
Oh, that's a missed opportunity, Jim.
My bad. But the broadcast was excellent, and Jeff Dancer was born to be the Georgia football sideline reporter. I'll say that it was pretty awesome, and DJ was very good in the booth with Scott. So that was pretty cool.
So did they just switch jobs?
Well, so Eric Zier is usually in the booth, right, with Scott, and he was not there. So I don't know where he was. If they said where he was or what was going on, I didn't hear it. So you remove him, and then they moved DJ up into the booth and put JD on the sideline. It was very good. Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'll say, I guess the last thing is pregame they did honoring the fives, right? And so they were all out there in the field and Coach Dooley was with them, honored all those guys, showed the unveiling of I don't know what I would say, I guess monuments that they've constructed for them. That was really cool. They got a standing ovation, and then they called the dogs, before kickoff. So that was a pretty cool moment.
That is really cool. On TV, it was nice to see old Coach Dooley. My wife made a comment. Oh man, he looks so spry.
Yeah.
He's he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he looked pretty good out there. Old coach.
Right. He did. It's it's interesting too. We were just having the conversation with folks around us, and this is one of the things that I know Kevin Butler did say on the Bulldog Brunch. It's pretty crazy to think that hearing that and about those guys and their stories that it took until 1971.
I know.
That's crazy. Like, yeah, I would have you would have thought it would have been sooner, but they're definitely trailblazers and pioneers and DGDs. So
yeah, absolutely, and some of the great calls from Munson too. So
absolutely, yep.
Great moment for sure. How about any other games of note? So just pivot on unless you have any other thoughts on
no
on the UGA game.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
So Auburn lost.
Yeah,
which,
they did.
Which was awesome.
It was fairly close, right? It was like an 8-point game, I think. Right? I didn't really. I mean, I just saw the highlights. So I guess I would say they hung with Penn State, which is what, top 10, top 15 teams. Yeah, I know. It sounds like Auburn fans aren't too happy with Bobo. That's the one thing I gathered from the Twitter last night.
Yeah. Oh man, run the ball, Bobo.
Yeah, run the ball.
Yeah, so Auburn lost, and obviously the Bama Florida game was a big surprise. Big surprise.
Oh man,
yeah. I feel like it's one of those games where like both teams lost.
I don't know how much to make of it, because like I guess there's kind of two sides to it, right? Like there's the Florida might actually be pretty good, but then the other side of it is, well, maybe Bama's not exactly what we thought they were, and I think it's probably a little bit of both. For me watching, I watched the first half, right, and then we left to go to the game, so I didn't see the so much like the comeback, but from what I did see, the Bama defense does not look like a Saban Bama defense to me. They did not look elite. Like, they looked good, but they didn't look elite.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So the MO for Bama lately has been, they outscore everybody, and it's just like a fun and gun. It's like fun and gun, and then they also have pretty stout defense. But what I think that what they ran up against is, I don't know that this offense is necessarily as lights out as they're used to. So if you don't have an offense that is actually like getting the job done, because they were getting stops, like Grantham was able to get them off the field a few times.
Yeah, what happened to third and Grantham? What was going on there?
Well, third and Grantham was definitely there in the first quarter, because that actually was something that I was very much looking for on the Twitters. When Bama went up 21-3 in the first quarter, and then basically like just let the game kind of get away from them. I don't know that it was anything that I really don't know what happened. Like, it was almost like it was like one team showed up for the game and then just disappeared. And that's really what it felt like.
I did see, we were watching, my dad and I were watching just like SEC Network's, coverage this morning, their recap show, I forget what it's called, the one with Ben Watson on it now. And, they were showing, Coach Saban and, talk about, like earlier, you said it was like a classic, like Saban kind of thing. And it's definitely here, right? Where, they won, although much closer, only a 2-point win. And Saban's got plenty of stuff that he can talk about. Right. And so one of the things that I did see him mention was basically he kind of feels like, they got out to that lead, was 21-3, like pretty quick. Right. And he thinks that they basically kind of rested on their laurels, and they didn't keep their focus, didn't keep the foot on the gas. That was one of the things that Saban was saying, which, I mean, honestly, like, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking that was definitely a possibility, and to see him say that, although I don't know when he says that kind of stuff, it's, again, kind of coaching to your players through the media, I'm sure. So
yeah, they Florida actually outgained Alabama in that game. They had over 400 yards of offense, and Bama only had like 300 something.
And Florida had rushing game.
Yeah. Almost 300 yards rushing, 245 yards rushing. Please tell me when the last time was that Alabama gave up over 200 yards rushing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's no telling. There's no telling.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another team that might be able to do it to them, though, was Ole Miss. I don't know how much of that, if you saw that Tulane game or any of those highlights, but their offense is legit.
Well, we talked about that preseason. I know that Hunter was talking about it, but that they felt like Ole Miss was going to give them a run for their money. Which if their offense doesn't get things together to be able to keep up on something like that, then it could be. I personally was hoping for a heartbreaking loss for Florida, just because I didn't want Mullen to get his goose egg on Nick Saban before Kirby does. So. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This looks like the weakest. It looks like a really good. Everything kind of sets up for, in my opinion, after watching everything. I feel like that we talked about it before. Teams were going to come down to earth. Florida came down to earth. Auburn came down to earth. Um, I think that after seeing everything out there, I feel like that all of our preseason kind of expectations are still kind of there. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
Florida didn't look super fantastic the on the defensive side of the ball. Um, yeah, I just think that we have our schedule is setting up really nicely for us. At the end of the day, if I'd have told you pregame that we were going to give up 3 turnovers, that Georgia was going to give the ball up 3 times, what would you say the score was?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably not. Probably not what it ended up being. That's fair.
Exactly. So there we have it. That's the
Yeah.
difference between this Georgia team and every other team that we've seen as of late. Because
Yeah.
if the teams that we've had in the past, I feel like that if like a 2019 or 2018 team, like maybe even 2017, if we gave up 3 turnovers, I don't know that we win that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, part of it though is I think South Carolina is pretty down. Like as far as their depth chart, what they've got. They're definitely in a rebuild. But I'll give them credit on just like effort and heart and like excitedness, right? I mean, they came to play. Those kids played hard. Did hate to see had a couple guys go out to injury. We didn't even talk about the reason Nolan left the game. I don't know if you saw this. His hand actually got stepped on by Jalen Carter. It was a total fluke thing. It was a play where he threw it and it went off their players' helmets, and the refs initially ruled it a fumble, and it actually was incomplete pass. But when it was ruled a fumble, everyone was trying to scramble to get to the ball, and his hand got stepped on. So that's actually why they switched to Doty. So I hated to see that. I know they lost a defensive player pretty early that they had that card off the field. So I didn't hear exactly what the injury was, but it looked like ankle or foot, something there. So I hate to see that. Hopefully those guys, heal up, and wish the best for them.
Yeah, yeah. Swift recovery for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've got what? How much time you got left in your car ride?
I'm probably about a half hour from home.
Okay. Well, this was fun. It was a good recap. We'll do it again next week for what do we got? We got Vanderbilt coming up next. We're going.
We got Vanderbilt. Continue. I'm telling you, man, this is the 2021 revenge tour. So we're gonna all the talk about last year's cancellation when we preview Vanderbilt. So get ready.
There we go. All right, man. Well, this was fun. Obviously, big victory, and we'll link up again next week. Go Dogs.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Thanks for helping me pass the time on my drive. Go Dogs.